Hey guys, Brandon here from the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast. I don't have to tell you how much the auto industry has changed over the past few years, and many are having to get creative in order to drive more traffic to their dealerships. Now this episode is chock full of creative tactics that one dealership is implementing to get their name out there. Be sure to listen to the entire episode, and maybe one of these things will be something that you can employ at your dealership. Now on with the show. From the people who help you know your competition, IntelliCheck presents the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast. The Multi-Point Inspection Podcast brings you news and stories from the automotive world told in an informative and entertaining way. Previously on the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast. Now, I've been in a lot of dealerships during my 13 years spent in the parts game, and I can tell you that the atmosphere is just different at this one, and they didn't know I was stopping by. I kind of just dropped in with the recorder rolling.
We've tweaked this program that it's going to be good, 3 to 5 years from now.
Right.
And it'll be good for us. It'll be good for everybody in our market at that point, hopefully.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, man, I'm super impressed. I mean, I just drove 3.5 hours.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you so much for hanging out with me.
All right.
We'll have more Good Morning Arkansas after the break.
Thank you, Angela. Hey, Scott Romine here for the Gwatney Automotive Minute. We're talking with Jamie Cobb of Gwatney Automotive.
There's haunted car wash is coming back for 2021. More ghouls, more goblins, and more scary. Let Gwatney attack what's holding you back. From his secret lair, Jamie Cobb of Gwatney Chevrolet.
And here to talk about the SCCA is David Barkley, the service manager at Gwatney Chevrolet.
Brought to you by Gwatney Chevrolet at the Gregory Street exit in Jacksonville. This is Gwatney Unplugged with Scott Romine.
One of the main missions of the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast is to highlight industry leaders in dealerships who think out of the box to keep up with the ever-changing auto industry. In Episode 5, we highlighted Gwatney Automotive's Gwatney Automotive Apprentice Program, or GAP, that they have implemented to combat the technician shortage crisis. For Episode 8, I was looking for dealerships who are using creative ways to market themselves, whether that be social media, traditional media, or both. And Gwatney ended up on my radar once again.
I grew up here in North Little Rock, Arkansas, graduated in 92 at the high school. And the high school, about 2 years before I graduated, the mayor invested in a television program for students to run it. And I was just infatuated with that. I started producing my own TV show that was on cable access.
This is Scott Romine, the media director at Gwatney Automotive.
And at 16 years old, a Fox affiliate picked it up and started running it on actual broadcast TV in the early 90s. And I actually, at 16 years old, could watch on an antenna TV myself up against David Letterman at 16. So it was just really strange how that came about. But I was always infatuated with that. Went to college for mass media, hosted the morning radio show through college.
Steve Jobs, in a now infamous Stanford commencement speech in 2005, made a statement about how you can only look back on your life and connect the dots to see how you got to where you are today.
Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path, and that will make all the difference.
And Scott Romine says he is living proof of that statement.
But I ended up following my dad's footsteps and joining the police department in North Little Rock, where I stayed for 10 years, rode motorcycles, and worked a lot with media as a police officer. Went to the FBI Academy for forensic video analysis and did some neat crime scene stuff. But produced a video about methamphetamine that actually got the police department a $375,000 grant. So all of a sudden I had all the video equipment I could ever want. I produced a documentary about online predators, pedophiles and stuff. And what's funny about that is I took the documentary to AETN, which is our public broadcasting channel across the state. And I'm wearing my uniform. I said, I've made this video. Maybe you guys would be interested. And they kind of blew me off. Like, the guys should be out there directing traffic. He's in the uniform and all this stuff. The next day they call me like, this is amazing. We're going to air this in its entirety. And we would like for you to get all these professionals that are in the video to appear on a live call-in panel show right after we air it. So it was just an incredible thing. I ended up getting Officer of the Year that year. And all of that really set me up for what I do today with Gwatney Automotive, making all of their media content. So it's been a fun run. It's weird how everything that has to fall into place and you land exactly where you should be. I'm a great example of that. I created a thing back in 2000 called Operation Safe Speed when I was a police officer. And I rode the motorcycle and I carried a 25 ticket a day average for a long time. Well, a book of tickets is 25. So the mayor's office is hearing all these things about, oh, you just bought those motorcycles to generate income for the city off all these tickets. And my response was, let me go on a TV morning show and announce where I'm going to run radar. And if you still get a ticket, you don't have that excuse anymore because I warned you ahead of time I was going to be there. And I called it Operation Safe Speed. I started this in 2000, and that just took off. Gannett came to me and said, we're trying to emulate this in 25 other television markets. Of course, I was with the North Rock Police Department, the Little Rock Police, the State Police, Conway, all these other entities, all these other departments wanted to be a part of it and put an officer on that show with me. And the more the merrier. They still do that 23 years later. So obviously my contacts that I made through the television station, the television world from being on TV has benefited me as an employee of Gwatney. In fact, our narrator on our Chevrolet commercials ran that TV station when I was, just a kid, just a 22-year-old kid on there in a police uniform. Actually got married in their weather garden live on their show one morning. So it's been a benefit to have been a part of that media world before I ever even started Gwatney. It's been a lot of fun.
Scott ended up at Gwatney thanks to his love of 1980s pop culture and one hit television show in particular.
The way I'd landed at Gwatney is everything in my life goes back to this orange car, the General Lee from the Dukes of Hazzard. I was always infatuated with that car. And back in 2003, my dad and I built a General Lee. And I thought it's not good enough to build something like this to sit in a garage. And so I started doing fundraisers for the Special Olympics. And I brought in James Best, who played Roscoe P. Coltrane on the Dukes, and of course, Corey Eubanks, who was the youngest stuntman. He started on that show when he was 18 years old, and he's really the only one that's still a working stuntman today that had worked on the Dukes show. And through him, he had his own racing league and lots of video projects going in California. And I would go out there and video and edit and produce things that look very similar to what Gwatney Performance Innovation was trying to do, literally 15 minutes from my house. And so I kind of showed them what I was doing in California. And they're like, yeah, we can have you make some videos about GPI. And I did the first GPI website and some videos kind of about what they were doing. It was really kind of in its infancy. It was still in the back of the service department at Gwatney Chevrolet. It didn't have its own building and all the stuff it has now. And that kind of grew into, well, how do we not just put this website out there and not update it and not make new videos? I said, well, it sounds like a full-time job. So that turned into a full-time job where I was just kind of a social media guy. I was making content for YouTube and content for, the dealerships in that capacity. But I started working with the actual production company that did all of the agency that did all of the TV and the radio advertising for Gwatney. And I started writing a lot of the spots that we were shooting. And I started, working with the camera crew that they would bring out. They bring out like 5 people. And I was used to doing everything by myself. And eventually, Gwatney just decided to take it in-house and that we would just let me produce all of the stuff in-house and we wouldn't have an agency.
One thing that caught my attention while doing research is that KATV ABC7 features Gwatney Automotive a lot.
Well, we are here at Gwatney Buick GMC, and we are talking about the newest EV charges right here at the dealership. Joining me today is Justin. Justin, thank you so much for being with me.
Scott says that even though he is a one-man show, there was a learning curve when it came to this aspect of getting the Gwatney name out there.
And the part that I kind of had to learn was buying the media. I'm a production guy, had not been involved in that side of it, but I know a lot of people in that business around here, and they kind of trained me up. So now all the radio spots, all the TV spots, all the other things we do, I take it from the start of it through the buying of the time to put it actually on the TV and the radio station. So, man, it's a lot of fun. It's pretty involved. I always think to myself, you replaced about 6 people. I've tried to go out there and establish relationships with these stations that I buy time from to the point that I'm getting more time than I pay for. They gladly promote what I do. They will even occasionally let me fill in on the morning show for their morning host or for their afternoon host. And my only agreement with them there is, hey, I'll do it, for nothing. But when there's a segment for an interview, I want to talk about Gwatney, or I want to interview somebody that works at our company. And I'm like, yeah, fine. Well, that's good for them because they're not paying a fill-in host. And my company's already spending money with them. I'm already putting my ads and spots in there. What difference does it make if I talk about the company for 6 minutes? Okay, let him do it. Yeah. So I don't know of another dealership that has relationships like that in the media world. I've never heard of it.
And he believes that Gwatney's decision to have him do everything was a win-win proposition.
I think it was a no-brainer. They were thinking of doing some different things with their advertising. And I was, in the back of my mind, it was, do you want to work with another media company? I really liked the guy I was working with, and we're still good friends. Or do you want to take on the challenge of doing all of this yourself? And I like that idea better. I knew how to do all the stuff, all the audio and the writing and the shooting and the editing, and I'm just passionate about it. I never feel like I go to work. Today, before I talk to you, I've been designing a new T-shirt that we're going to put out at our car wash, and to me, it's just all fun. But it is very involved, and I'm not a bragger kind of guy, but I don't really know a lot of people that like every single element of it. I'm working in TV, and I've worked on some movies and done projects in California. You're an audio guy, or you're an editor, or you're a camera guy. It's just rare that somebody likes all of it.
And we'll get into some of the truly innovative and creative ways Scott is promoting Gwatney Automotive after the break.
So we have got your promotional material in our store, and I've kept track. I've had 13 different customers come to me who were in for regular repairs and say, oh my gosh, I want to get my oil changed because I did not realize that your price was cheaper than Jiffy Lube. I didn't realize your price was cheaper than Walmart. And, people didn't know. And it helped us gain some business that we weren't getting before.
Chris has been with Chevrolet for over 22 years and is talking about IntelliCheck's IntelliShare series. IntelliShare contains all of our promotional tools that you can use to promote your favorable prices, including our Intella ads, the printable flyers that you can show off in easel displays, Intella Media for your digital media boards, and Intella widgets, so you can show off price comparisons on your website and even let your customers schedule from the widget. This is how you upsell your customers without hard selling them.
I placed 2 placards in the business center so they could see that while they're over there working on computers. Also placed it in our coffee area. We have a glass wall there. So when they walk in, as they're putting their creamer and sugar in their coffee, they're going to look up and see the pricing for our pricing as well as our competitors.
Call 877-827-7273 or go to IntelliCheck.com to find out more about how the IntelliShare series can help you grow your business.
And I've had some fun things. I'd love to draw. I've done some animated TV commercials. Animation is extremely expensive. It's probably why you never see it very rarely on a dealership's commercial. I came up with a character where our boss, our spokesman, Jamie Cobb, is like an Iron Man type character. And when he puts the armor on, of course, there's a lighted bow tie in the center of his chest, where the arc reactor would be. And he becomes the character Silverado, a champion for Arkansas customers. And he goes flying off through the sky, and he helps like customers that are upside down in their vehicle. Get it? Upside down in their vehicle.
From his secret lair, Jamie Cobb of Gwatney Chevrolet preps his custom armor for super speed to become Silverado, a champion for Arkansas customers. 22 Silverados blasted down to $42,218. Pre-owned as low as $299 a month and with a power boost.
Connecting to OnStar.
No payments until next year. Gwatney Chevrolet, your super friends in the car business.
So I came up with that, and I found that a lot of the funnest stuff has just maybe a little tinge of controversy to it. I came up with a thing. I thought if you were upside down in your car and all of this stuff, who would be the best people to rescue you? And I invented Deal Team 6.
Gwatney Chevrolet's Deal Team 6 is waging war on your budget during Operation Payment Airstrike. Huge car payments, Gwatney takes it down. Nope. So get to Gwatney Chevrolet at the Gregory Street exit because saving you money is half the battle.
And so I love everything 80s, and I animated these things that basically where I took our managers and made them G.I. Joe team members, right? And I use like G.I. Joe style vehicles, and they're blowing up, high prices and high interest. And I mean, it's just crazy, but people react to it, and had people coming in droves trying to lower their payments and all this kind of stuff. And it's just all based on this crazy commercial where I'm sitting around going, you know what? I love G.I. Joe. I'm making my own G.I. Joe commercial. That's what I'm going to do. And, just passionate about it. It's just fun.
Yeah. And how do you keep your kids occupied while you're in the process of buying a vehicle or waiting to have your car serviced? Let them color in a Gwatney-themed superhero coloring book, of course.
I took all these characters and I created, both dealerships have their own coloring book. So if somebody's doing a car deal, parents, and they've got kids that need to be entertained, they're sitting over there coloring a coloring book that is full of our managers as superheroes and puzzles and all this stuff related to our dealerships, our companies. I've never really heard of anybody doing anything like that. I just thought it would be fun.
And while Scott really is a kid at heart, he's as shrewd as he is creative.
So one of the unique things that Gwatney has, when I took over from the agency, my goal was to involve us in things that agencies don't go out of their way to involve us in, which is opportunities just to be on TV talking about, just automotive in general. And I created a thing called Auto Matters. And once I created this Auto Matters, we're on the #1 station with 1 minute and 15 second, just informative pieces, like who invented the blinkers.
There is one unique feature of all modern cars that unfortunately some Arkansans are completely unaware of. Of course, I'm talking about blinkers. Yes, that little stop on the left side of your steering column actually does something. In 1925, Edgar Waltz Jr. patented the first modern turn signal.
What do you do with blue lights behind you?
Odds are you've heard a siren or seen flashing lights behind you before. But as a driver, what are you really supposed to do in these situations?
I write all these things and I edit 1 minute and 15 seconds. Well, it's funny that after I created that, other dealers in the area have asked that station why they didn't get the opportunity to be the Auto Matters guy. Well, guess what? You didn't invent Auto Matters. That's basically how that came to be.
And if all this isn't enough, Gwatney Automotive also has its very own radio show.
I wanted us to have a radio show. And no dealership has a radio show that I've ever heard of. But my goal was not to just sit there and beat you over the head about some car price or whatever. I wanted to make the show interesting, kind of like a radio man cave type thing. And then let the name of the show, Gwatney Unplugged, and then we get half of the commercials inside of that show. And I mentioned the show all week on the station. It's on 102.9 KARN, which is Arkansas's biggest talk station. So I love pop culture, right? So over the years, I've had Catherine Bach, who was Daisy on the Dukes of Hazzard.
From the NLRPD to KTHV to behind the microphone, it's Scott Romine with Gwatney Unplugged.
Hi, welcome back to Gwatney Unplugged. I'm your host, Scott Romine. This is the interview we've waited to do all week long. It is such a blessing for me to finally, this is a dream come true, to say Happy Valentine's Day to my very first Valentine, Catherine Bach. How are you?
Well, thank you, Scott, and happy Valentine's Day to you, sweetie.
Oh, my gosh. I've had John Schneider, who was Bo Duke. I have had a guy from the movie Blade Runner, William Sanderson. I've had Arnold Schwarzenegger's stunt double, who tells amazing stories of getting hurt on Predator or all the stunts he did on Commando and True Lies and just being best friends with Eddie Van Halen. I've had all these really cool people on this dealership's radio show. Heck, I had Lee Haney, who was a champion bodybuilder, Mr. Olympia 8 times, was the first person to beat Arnold Schwarzenegger's record. I had him on like 3 weeks ago.
I'm doing great, Scott. A pleasure to be on the show with you.
Oh, it is just a big deal to me to get to talk to you. I have looked up to you forever. So amongst making all these commercials and T-shirts and all these things I do, I'm constantly putting out feelers to celebrities. Hey, would you come on this radio show? And people can find the past episodes of that at GwatneyUnplugged.com. And man, there's just all kinds of stuff on there, from the guy that wrote First Blood and invented Rambo to a guy that flies Apache helicopters. I mean, it's kind of all over the map. If I think it's cool, I'm going to get him on the show. That's right. Kind of the goal,
If you've listened to Ep.5 of the Multi-Point Inspection podcast, you know that Gwatney Automotive is very proactive with reaching out to schools to introduce students to the Gwatney Automotive Apprentice Program.
And a bunch of the kids that we've talked to, we visited, 7 high schools around here?
Yeah.
And career centers?
Yeah.
And, you talk to them about going to college, and a bunch of people right now are scared to go to college for some reason. Really? I don't know if they don't want to get strapped down with the student loan.
Scott Romine also visits high schools to help promote GAP, but he also offers students another path.
So, leading up to, I talked about the coloring book and all that for Gwatney. Art is something I've always been passionate about. My younger sister is an art teacher in a high school here locally. And that kind of kicked off with back in 2007, I had this General Lee. I'm doing all these Duke shows. I did the websites for a lot of the actors from Dukes of Hazzard. And I approached James Best, who played Roscoe P. Coltrane in the Dukes of Hazzard, about why, he's a painter. Why have you never painted anything from your TV show? And he's like, oh, I can't paint a car, And I said, well, Jimmy, I can paint a car. You just paint the landscape around the car. And he says, ooh, we'll split it 50-50. Ooh, and I was like, yeah. I think he kind of thought it was kind of a joke, but he's going to go along with it. Well, the first one sells on eBay for $6,500. And then he knew Scott's got a pretty good idea, And we went on to do, probably sold 1,000 or more prints of these things, probably 100 originals. And I talk about this a little bit. One of the most recent Gwatney things I've come up with is I put together a 50-minute presentation about marketing based around, art for art students. And I've went to 2 high schools. I've put this on about 9 times in high schools. and I have a slideshow that goes along with it. I show a few of our commercials, but I just try to give these high schoolers the concept that, look, art can be a profession, but you don't want to, education in, 16th century oil paintings. Who's looking for that? You know what I mean? But I want them to think about things like, I've been blessed to work with like the marketing department at Warner Brothers with licensing. And I talk about, how that kind of works, how licensing works, and I get into like with Chevrolet, how specific the font is, how specific the bow tie is. I want these kids to look at packages in Walmart in a different light. Why is it that way? What's incorrect or what's right about that? And just kind of steer these art students in a direction of, if this is what you're really interested in, look, people are always going to need digital billboards. I do a lot of those, or banner ads for websites. Just giving these kids the idea that, hey, there is a future in this. And at the very end of it, I show the video I made about GAP, the Gwatney Automotive Apprentice Program. Look, if the art side of it is not for you and you're really into cars, we have this apprentice program where you work right alongside a mechanic. So I give them kind of both the options, and the response to it has been really good. I got another school I'm talking to that wants me to come and do it for their students. And I think it's something that just kind of blow up, kind of word of mouth. But I don't know of another dealership that has someone that goes into high schools and promotes what they do in that way. I've never heard of it, I've heard of cutting a check. Hey, put our name on your football jersey or something, and we do that too. But as far as actually going in the classroom, I think we're really unique to that.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
So
that's so awesome.
I want to thank Scott Romine of Gwatney Automotive for taking the time to give a most interesting interview. You can find the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And be sure to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. It helps with the algorithm thingy. Executive producer for the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast is David Swan. It is written, produced, and narrated by me, Brandon Barnett. This episode's featured music is Grateful People by Heartland Nights. IntelliCheck. Know your competition.